All right, let's go over example 1, finding the percent of a number. And this is chapter 5, section 6, solving percent problems. Okay, so before we get into any problems here, I do want to point out a couple things. On the right here, I have some percents and their equivalent fractions. So I've already given you that step. And then over here, I have the steps for solving the problems. And then we have our multiplication table that we can use to help solve the problems. Okay, so problem A says 25% of 40 is what number? Okay, step 1 says to change the percent into a fraction. So we are given 25%. I'm going to look over here to my key. 25% equals 1/4. Okay, so that means we're going to take 1/4. 1/4 times 40 equals, right? Because of means times, 40 is our whole number, is means equals. Okay, step 2 says to change the whole number into a fraction. All right, so we have 1/4 times, now we're going to change 40 into a fraction. So how do we change a whole number into a fraction? Well, if you remember from, I believe, last chapter, if you ever want to change a whole number into a fraction, you put the whole number as the numerator, the top number, and then you add 1 as a denominator. Okay, so again, we put the whole number 40 as the numerator and added 1 as the denominator. Step 3 says to simplify. Okay, because remember, before we multiply, we always try and simplify. So we look across to simplify. We have a 1 and a 1. We can't simplify that. 1 is as small as we can get. 4 and 40. Let's see, can 4 go into 40 exactly? Let's look at our down on our 4 column. I'm looking for the number 40. Yes, 4 times 10 is 40. Okay, so my 4 can turn into a 1 because 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 goes into 40, we just learned 10 times. So my 40 turns into a 10. Okay, now let's rewrite before we multiply so we're nice and neat. So 1/4 is really 1 times 41 is 40 over 1 is simplified to 10 for 1. Okay, and now step 4 says multiply. And when we multiply fractions, we multiply straight across. So 1 times 10 is 10. 1 times 1 is 1. And if we have anything over 1, our answer is really that anything, which in this case is 10, because we had 10 over 1. So that could be simplified to just 10. Okay, so we learned 25% of 40 is 10. Okay, let's go over another one together. Problem B says 10% of 110 is what number? All right, step 1, change percent into a fraction. 10%, let's look, that's 1/10. Of means times. 110 is our whole number. Is means equals. Step 2 says to change the whole number into a fraction. Okay, so we still have 1/10 times. To change 110 into a fraction, we're going to put 110 as the numerator, the top number, and then 1 as the denominator. All right, let's move problem C down a little bit. There we go. Okay, but before we multiply, we need to simplify. That's step 3. So we look diagonally, right? So 1 and 1, can't simplify that. 1's as small as we can get. 10 and 110. Ooh, I know 10. Let's look down on our 10 column. See if we get to 110. We do. 10 times 11 is 110. Okay, so if we count by 10s, to get to 10, we'll take one time, right? 10, 1. Okay, so 10 turns into a 1. If we count by tens, how long would it take us to get to 110? Well, we learned 11 times. So 110 simplified to 11. Okay, let's rewrite so it's neater. So 1/10 is really turned into 1 over 1 times 110 over 1 is simplified to 11 over 1. Okay, we multiply across. So 1 times 1 times 11 is 11. 1 times 1 is 1. And again, if we have anything over 1, we can just simplify it to that anything. So 11 over 1 is the same thing as 11. So 10% of 110 is 11. Okay, we're going to go over a couple more, but I'm going to move down all of my tools here. At this time, I want you to pause the video and see if you can solve C and D on your own. All right, let's solve them together. Problem C says 75% of 32 is what number? All right, step 1, change percent into a fraction. 75%, let's look, 3/4. Of means times. 32 is our whole number. Is means equals. Step 2, change the whole number into a fraction. So we still keep 3/4 the same. We are still multiplying. To change 32 into a fraction, I'm going to put 32 as my numerator and 1 as my denominator. Step 3 says to simplify. We always do that before we multiply. Let's see, we have a 3 and a 1. Oh, 1 is as small as we can get, so we can't simplify that. Let's look diagonally the other way. 4 and 32. Let's look. Can 4 go into 32 exactly? Yes, it can. 8 times. Okay, so 4, if we count by 4s, 4 goes into 4 once. 4 goes into 32 8 times, we just saw on the multiplication chart. Let's rewrite our fractions so they're nice and neat. So 3/4 has turned into 3 over 1 times 32 over 1 has turned into 8 over 1. Now these numbers are a lot smaller, easier to multiply. 3 times 8 is 24. 1 times 1 is 1. Again, we have a fraction with 1 as the denominator, so then we can just simplify to 24. So 75% of 32 is 24. One more. 20% of 65 is what number? Step 1, change percent into a fraction. 20% is 1/5. Of means times. 65 is our whole number. Is means equals. Step 2, change whole number into a fraction. Oh gosh, that got a little bit crazy. 1/5 stays the same. We are still multiplying. To turn 65 into a fraction, 65 is going to be the numerator. 1 is going to be the denominator. Step 3, simplify. We're going to look diagonally, 1 into 1. Can't simplify that. 1 is as small as we can get. 5 and 65. Let's look. Can 5 go into 65 equally? Oh, you know what? We ran out of room on our multiplication chart. But if we kept counting by 5s, 50, 55, 60, 65, 5 does go into 65 exactly. So if we count by 5s though, how many times does 5 go into 5? Let's see. 5, 1 times. So 5 is simplified to 1. And we did run out of room, but 50, so 50, 55, 60, 65 would be the next number. So if our chart kept going, it would be 13 times. So 65 is simplified to 13. Now let's rewrite our fractions so it's a little neater, easier to understand. So 1/5 is simplified to 1 over 1. We are still multiplying. 65 over 1 is simplified to 13 for 1. Now we multiply straight across, so 1 times 13 is 13. 1 times 1 is 1. And we can keep simplifying to just 13 because we have a denominator of 1. So 20% of 65 is 13.